Welcome to FCC Edge. I'm your host, Kevin Stewart. Today, we've selected some of our favorite health-related features from past episodes of The Edge and compiled them into this special program. So here we go. Be prepared to be enlightened, engaged, maybe even surprised. FCC Edge, the best of your health. Now, here's a topic nearly every farmer at one time or another has had to wrestle with: back pain. In fact, my dad farmed with back pain issues his entire life. The fact is, 85% of North Americans have back pain, and it isn't just about getting older. The new research we read in Prevention Magazine shows a few other reasons for back pain that you may not be aware of. So here we go. First, ask yourself, are you getting enough vitamin D? Dr. Stuart Levitt is a pain management specialist and says that often patients with chronic back pain have lower levels of vitamin D. The good doctor has found that people who take 2,000 international units of vitamin D every day significantly reduce their pain, and sometimes it disappears. As always, of course, it's a good idea to talk to your doctor about that one. Another reason for back pain: poor intestinal health. Blockage in the lower intestine can cause pressure in the lower back, and the longer you're blocked up, the worse the pain gets. The fix: eat more fiber, vegetables, fruit, whole grains, and of course, exercise. The next reason for back pain that you may not be aware of is your bad mood. Mood plays a significant role in how the body perceives pain. So if you're stressed or depressed, it can magnify and intensify any minor existing pain. And finally, if you have an undiagnosed scoliosis, it's a tough one apparently to diagnose in adults because doctors have a hard time telling the difference between pain caused by scoliosis and pain caused by disc problems. Scoliosis is partly preventable. You just need to have healthy habits like maintaining a healthy weight, doing exercises that build back strength, and by the way, not smoking. 4 surprising causes of back pain come from the folks at themayoclinic.com.
Sometimes we can fool ourselves into believing that all our actions and hard work will somehow magically result in progress. Ken Blanchard, author of The 1 Minute Manager, says it's important every day to take a minute, look at your goals, look at your performance, and see if your behavior matches your goals.
According to the American Safety Council, almost 70% of teenagers who live or work on a farm show signs of early noise-induced hearing loss. Now, at first glance, we might assume that teenage hearing loss is caused by all that loud music. In case of rural young people, it's not likely that simple. Now, having said that, researchers at the University of Kentucky have identified that radios inside tractor cabs are one of the real trouble spots when it comes to prolonged pounding on the eardrums. It's also worth noting that 50% of Americans who have some form of hearing impairment live in rural areas. So experts believe the farm is a significant source of damage to the ears of young people. University of Kentucky researchers have developed a list of the most damaging noises on the farm. Here are the top 5 to watch out for. Number 5, chopping silage. The problem is typically noise level combined with prolonged exposure to it. 3 factors are tied at number 4: power mowers, ATVs, and squealing sows. Noise levels in animal confinement buildings, particularly swine and poultry, are a real problem, and if you are a livestock farmer, you'll know it's particularly bad at feeding time. Number 3, tractors and combines. Now, as equipment becomes larger, it can emit noise levels of 80 to 150 decibels. Experts have proven that the ear can be exposed to short blasts in excess of 120 decibels without permanent damage, though this level is going to cause you some discomfort. The surprising part is the long-term exposure to sound levels over only 80 decibels. This can cause permanent hearing loss. Number 2, for you carpenters out there, a table saw cutting through an oak board. And the number 1 risk of hearing damage on the farm: the chainsaw. Actually, you could generalize a bit here and include most small power tools, especially those powered by the two-stroke engines. There are three issues here: prolonged exposure, the level or the amount of noise, and most importantly, the intensity. Most equipment with two-cycle engines, and you have to include electric power tools here as well, these are typically operated close to the body and hence close to the ears. So a couple of takeaways for you on this one. Properly fitted earplugs or muffs are the answer. No surprise there. But you should know that these only reduce noise about 15 to 30 decibels. According to the Safety Council, earplugs are more suited to the low-frequency noise. The full-covering ear muff type protection is best suited for higher frequencies. Experts recommend, though, that with any operation consistently exceeding 105 decibels, you should wear both the plugs and the ear muff. To measure the exact amount of noise being produced in and around your operation, pick up an instrument called a sound level meter. You can easily find one at electronics stores for less than $100.
Get the Edge on the go. Download episodes of FCC Edge on iTunes or at fcc.ca/edge.
Okay, who listening hasn't rolled their eyes at the advice from numerous sources that you need 30 minutes of exercise a day to remain healthy? The message is akin to telling someone to look both ways before you cross the street. We know it's the right thing to do, but you have to admit it isn't really all that compelling. In the fall of 2012, a diabetes research group in Britain analyzed 18 existing studies involving almost 800,000 people and found a common health link between them all, a culprit actually: sitting. Researchers found that between sitting to eat, read, drive, watch TV, work on the computer, and you have to include sleeping, the average person now spends nearly, you ready for this? 80% of their life completely stationary. The study reveals some serious numbers. Those who sit all day had a 147% increased risk of heart attack or stroke, 112% increased risk of developing diabetes, 90% greater risk of dying from a cardiac event, and 49% greater risk of premature mortality. Some in the media have coined the phrase, "sitting is the new smoking." So what's the deal with sitting? The research, led by Dr. Emma Wilmot, shows that there are a few things that happen inside our bodies when we sit idle for hours at a time. Firstly, sitting sharply impacts glucose and insulin levels, key factors in developing diabetes and weight issues. Secondly, fat is a form of fuel for our muscles. Long hours of sitting impacts the levels of an enzyme responsible for drawing fat from the bloodstream and feeding it to the muscles. But when we sit idle, the fat remains in the blood and causes all kinds of problems throughout the body. Finally, when you're idle, your muscles and tendons start to shrink. The shrinking results in all kinds of physical issues such as neck and back pain. Fitness trainer Paul Nielsen from Nielsen Fitness says that as a result, we are seeing people in their 30s with the kind of poor posture expected in people in their late 50s. Nielsen says an unexpected result of this sedentary life is our brain is not as sharp. Just 30 minutes of exercise per day means that you are less likely to develop brain attrition and several conditions related to memory loss. Another British study, this one reported in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology, found that those who accumulated more than 4 hours of screen time, TVs, computers, that kind of thing, each day, were twice as likely to be hospitalized or die from a major cardiac event compared to those who kept their screen time to 2 hours a day or less. Convinced yet? We haven't even touched on the research that shows that sitting is now closely associated with at least 3 forms of cancer. While technological advances have made our lives easier, activity is actually being engineered out of our daily lives. So what can we do about this? Well, researchers are suggesting that the answer has, good news and bad news. So let's bite the bullet and deal with the bad news first. Even if you exercise vigorously 1 hour every day, it would not counter the effects of 23 hours of being idle. If you think about it, it makes sense. 1 hour of activity and 23 hours of sitting, not an active lifestyle. Now the good news. The solution is small, frequent movement. According to the American College of Sports Medicine, we should break every hour of sitting with 1 or 2 minutes of activity in addition to making time for regular exercise. So it can be as simple as this. Stand up and walk for a minute or so every 30 to 60 minutes of sitting. Get up and walk during commercials if you're watching TV. If you're at a desk for long periods of time, find ways to stand at your desk. You can walk and talk while you're on the phone, you can type using a voice dictation app, or you can sit on an exercise ball. It's called active sitting. If I know I have to log some serious hours of sitting, maybe it's coming up to year end or some other project, I often set a timer on the computer. This ensures that every 30 to 60 minutes I stand up, get a drink, walk outside, climb a flight of stairs, pick up the mail, pull a few weeds, whatever. Experts say that the key to counteracting all the sitting we do isn't hours and hours and hours of vigorous exercise each day, while exercise is important, but rather just keep the muscles moving, even just a little bit. This means taking frequent, short breaks. You don't have to run a marathon. You just need to keep in mind our bodies were designed to move.
There are now smartphone apps that can tell you in an instant just how intense the sun's rays are. One app called Ultraviolet will let you know what the UV index is in your area, how high of a risk level it represents, and some tips on protecting yourself.
My teens constantly remind me how important it is to look cool. They joke, "Dad, it doesn't matter how good a job you do, it only matters how good you look doing it." I think they're joking. At least I hope they are. When I ask them what's the most important component of being cool, they agree it's sunglasses. So, in my quest to find a cool pair of shades, I actually learned a few things. First, my teens are right about one thing. Sunglasses are important, but not for the cool factor, for the safety factor. Here are 4 reasons why everyone should wear sunglasses. 1. There is a good reason why health officials continue to warn us about the damage the sun does to our eyes. It's cancer. Ultraviolet light is the main culprit. According to Dr. Carrie Beebe, you want to keep all ultraviolet light from getting into your eyes and onto the skin around the eyes because the skin around the eyes is one of the most prone to skin cancer. While wide-brimmed hats can block up to 50% of UV radiation, it seems health officials agree you want to try to block all of it. Look for sunglasses that block 99% of ultraviolet A and B rays. Second, being able to see. The sun's brightness and glare commonly interfere with our ability to function effectively. This typically results in prolonged squinting or watery eyes, and anyone who's familiar with this routine knows headaches are not far behind. The solution here is simple. Look for sunglasses with polarized lenses. 3. Experts warn that long-term exposure to the violet and blue portions of sunlight can increase your risk of macular degeneration. This is especially true for the sun-sensitive crowd. Number 4, dark adaptation. Spending all day in the bright sun can impair your eye's ability to adapt to nighttime or indoor light levels. So let me leave you with a couple of quick thoughts to consider when shopping for sunglasses. I was slightly alarmed, actually, to discover that you can spend from $15 to $500 on sunglasses. So what's the difference? Dr. Beebe says a lot of times the expense comes from the quality of the frames and the optics of the lens. Apparently, cheaper lenses can have a bit more optical distortion because they are pressed and not ground. So price doesn't appear to correlate too much to safety. Look for 99 to 100% block of both UVA and UVB radiation. Next, consider gray-colored lenses since they reduce light intensity without altering the color of objects. Thirdly, consider polarized lenses, especially if you work around surfaces that glare like water or steel. Fourthly, consider photochromic lenses if you tend to move back and forth between dark and light locations. Photochromic lenses change the intensity of the UV light by turning darker when they go outdoors and lighter when indoors. Now keep in mind that sunglasses are important anytime your eyes are exposed to UV light, even on cloudy days and during those cold winter months.
Hi, my name is Kaylee, and my mom and dad are proud to be farmers, and now you've got the edge.
If we were to do a quick survey of the most important aspects of healthy living, you might hear some predictable responses. You eat a balanced diet, don't smoke, exercise regularly, and you'd likely throw in something about sleep for good measure. When you're busy, which of these is most expendable? Most of us try to eat, even if it's on the run. If we are pressed for time, exercise is often the first casualty, and maybe sleep is next. When deadlines are tight, it is tempting to go to bed late, to get up early, shaving 2, even 4 hours off your sleep time. It turns out, though, that sleep may be the most underrated aspect of living a healthy life. Let's start with weight. The less you sleep, the more likely you are to be overweight. If you have 3 consecutive nights of bad sleep, typically this increases insulin resistance, which means your body is storing fat. People who sleep less than 6 hours per night are statistically more overweight than those who sleep 8 hours. It's a serious issue when you consider that right now, numerous health experts are saying that about 35% of all adults are obese, 62% are overweight, and estimates now range, but by the year 2020 or so, as high as 80% of the population will be obese. Cutting corners on sleep is also associated with a list of health concerns: high blood pressure, depression, even lower immunity. We all know, too, that little sleep impairs motor coordination, reflexes, and judgment. Carl Honoré, the author of In Praise of Slow, says fatigue has played a part in some of the world's worst disasters, including Chernobyl, the Exxon Valdez, 3 Mile Island, and the Space Shuttle Challenger. The problem is real, and the culprit is typically our pursuit of success. Now, it's important to be aware that while success is the goal, however you define that, everything has a price. According to Statistics Canada, the higher your income, the less sleep you get. That's a fact. Matt Hurst, a senior analyst with the Canadian Social Trends Annual Survey, says that high-income Canadians spend more time on paid work and commuting. They spend less time with their children and engaged in leisure activities. The large majority of this group also feels rushed most of the time, and all of these contribute to less quantity and quality of shut-eye. The concerning part is, armed with all this information, our sleep habits are actually getting worse, not better. The National Sleep Foundation reveals that we are sleeping less with each passing year. So let's do a quick sleep audit to see if you can buck these trends. Here are 5 ideas to help you sleep smart. First, establish a regular bedtime. Translation: staying up late and sleeping in are hard on your rest cycles and on your waistline. Second, avoid the sleep killers, especially close to bedtime. There's 3: nicotine, caffeine, and alcohol. Thirdly, try to avoid consuming your calories late in the day. Now, I personally struggled with this one for years. You work long hours, you forget or don't have time to eat during the day, you come home late, you're hungry and you're thirsty. Now you're consuming significant calories late in the day, typically after 8 p.m. This means you sleep on a full stomach, which means you're awakened in the night to use the bathroom, and the bottom line is you just don't sleep well. It really becomes a vicious cycle. 4, create a sleep-conducive environment that is dark, quiet, and comfortable. This should include removing the TV and the computer from the bedroom. And finally, people sleep significantly better and feel more alert during the day if they get at least 150 minutes of exercise a week. Try to complete hard work or hard workouts at least 3 hours before bedtime. If your health and your productivity on the farm are seriously lacking, it may well be a question of just grabbing ourselves by the scruff of the neck and changing a few habits to ensure that we sleep smarter. Thanks for joining us once again on another edition of FCC Edge. There are a number of editions of The Edge online you can listen to while working away in your farm office. You can also download the podcast to your smartphone or MP3 player when you've got some hours to log in the tractor seat. You will find FCC Edge on iTunes or just by visiting fcc.ca/edge. Edge. In fact, that website is part of the Learning Center. It's a feature that Farm Credit Canada is building online, so you'll not only find these podcasts there, but also numerous videos, webinars, and articles related to farm management, money and finance, technology and innovation, and of course, a good shot of inspiration as well. All the intel is online at fcc.ca/multimedia.